the Toronto Raptors might make a huge trade before the draft, because there have been speculations and rumors about the Toronto Raptors making a trade with the Portland Trailblazers for the 3rd pick overall before the draft comes. And this is very, very big. This is huge because it would be an indicator of where the Toronto Raptors are going to be going for the foreseeable future. Now, when the Toronto Raptors lost to the Chicago Bulls in a play-in tournament, Masai Ujiri came out and he explicitly said that major changes were going to come to the organization. The Toronto Raptors have been mediocre for the better part of the last 3 years, ever since they won the championship in 2019 and Kawhi Leonard left and Kyle Lowry left. The Toronto Raptors just haven't been the same. Yes, they've made the playoffs, but they've lost in the first round, the second round, nothing really to talk about. And they need something major. They need to do something like they did in 2019 when they took a huge swing and got Kawhi Leonard and got a championship out of it. And the Toronto Raptors are at that precipice. Masai Ujiri was right. Major changes have happened since he said that. For one, fired Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse wasn't adequate for the job anymore. Nick Nurse is a coach that is prime for a team that is already built, a team that is already established. That's why he took the job with the Philadelphia 76ers, because he wants an opportunity to coach a superstar like Joel Embiid and whoever they're able to get for him. And then also, they've been hunting for coaches. There are many coaches that have been linked with the Toronto Raptors. Becky Hammon of the Las Vegas Aces has been linked to the Toronto Raptors, and there's also been Steve Nash that's been linked to the Toronto Raptors, and other coaches have also been linked to the Toronto Raptors. So major changes are coming, but this change would be massive. Trade that's proposed was from Bleacher Report, and it was also from ESPN, and rumors that the Toronto Raptors might trade Pascal Siakam to the Portland Trailblazers in return for the number 3 overall pick and 3 other players. Those players being Anfernee Simmons, Nassir Little, and Keon Johnson. Now, these players that we would be getting from the Portland Trailblazers, they don't matter, right? They're not going to be the cornerstone of the trade. The cornerstone is that coveted 3rd pick overall. This would be the second time in the last 2 years that the Toronto Raptors would draft within the lottery, right? The top 5. And if the Toronto Raptors were to make this trade and get that 3rd pick, it's speculated that that 3rd pick is going to be, regardless of if the Toronto Raptors or the Portland Trailblazers use that pick or not, it's going to be Scoot Henderson from the G League, who currently plays for Ignite. I've got a chance to look at this guy. I've watched some of his highlights. He's very explosive. He reminds me of younger John Wall. If you go and watch his highlights, if you look at him, he reminds me a lot of young John Wall, young Rusell Westbrook, young Derrick Rose. He's that type of player. An extremely athletic guard, extremely explosive, extremely quick. And there are other aspects to his game, but that was really the thing that popped out to me. That was the thing where I was like, okay, cool. But he's a point guard, and then also he's 19 years old. So the reason I say it would be a massive change for the Toronto Raptors is because they were at a fork in the road. And the fork, they had to make a decision. Do they stay with what they've been doing, trying to acquire players to come play for Toronto? Or do they go full in rebuild mode? And if they were to make this trade, it would confirm that they are going to go into full rebuild mode. And that's what I think should happen. I've been advocating for the Toronto Raptors to rebuild. I think the Toronto Raptors for the past 3 years have been a middle of the pack team. They've been in no man's land, in which they're not good enough to really go deep into the playoffs, and they're not bad enough to get lottery picks, right? And so they just mediocre. They're meh, nothing really to talk about. And in order to change that, Toronto Raptors need to overhaul, use the assets that they have right now, try and get draft capital and get really, really talented generational talents in the draft in order to build for the future, because the Toronto Raptors roster that we have right now has plateaued. It reminds me of the Toronto Raptors in 2016 or 2017, in which Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, they plateaued. They made the playoffs multiple times. They even became the first seed in the Eastern Conference, and it didn't matter. They didn't go deep into the playoffs. They would always get knocked out. And I think it's the same thing with this team right now. It doesn't matter that you have Pascal Siakam. It doesn't matter that you have Fred VanVleet. Those guys alone together isn't good enough to do anything in the Eastern Conference as it is right now. But they are very valuable on the market. They're very valuable, and teams would do so much to have Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, and OG Anunoby. Those 3 guys, you could get a boatload for those guys if you really do commit to rebuilding this team.